Hey, you guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to invite a dear friend, a mother whose son Solomon is the same age as Sebastian, someone that fills my heart with joy and has introduced me to something, a practice that I use, and something that helps me really find my way. Ashley Neese is a renowned breathwork teacher and author. She has studied with some of the world's leading masters in yoga, meditation, medical intuition, and somatic therapy. Ashley draws from this deep well of resources to guide people back into their bodies, where they learn beyond the cognitive mind how to cultivate resilience, develop relational intelligence, and trust the wisdom within themselves. Her passion lies in the belief that our deepest and most profound healing occurs when we learn to listen to the unique language of our own bodies. Oh, Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelly. I'm really happy to be here with you this morning.
It's like so fun because outside of this podcast, we're just girlfriends who share pictures of our kids and talk about eczema and talk about planting a garden. Just so you guys know, Ashley lived in Los Angeles. She was a dear friend when, and you still are, but we got to see each other a little bit more. We attended each other's blessings for our boys. Our due dates were a day apart. We had our babies, like, they are star twins. So it's a magical thing to have shared that with you, Ashley. And since she moved to Oakland and now she is in Yosemite, just tapping into the vibrations of the earth and putting herself in a place to really connect with her family and the planet. And I'm like living vicariously through you, Ashley. So tell me a little bit about your life, and let's first start with what is breathwork, and kind of like what has been your journey to find and start using breathwork.
Yeah. So I just want to say before I jump into that I'm just, like I said, I'm so happy to be having this conversation with you this morning. And as I was preparing and doing some breathing before we got on, I was thinking about our boys and just thinking about the first time we met when you were working on your first book, and just how much we've grown over these last years and evolved. And it's just amazing I feel like we're just growing right alongside of each other. And it's just like, you are such an anchor for me in my process and in my life. And I'm just really grateful for you.
Love you, sister.
Love you
Don't
too.
make me cry in the first few minutes of this podcast.
No, we said we weren't going to be crying on this podcast before we jumped in. So
hey, Cody, can you edit? Just kidding.
So breathwork is the way that I like to describe it is super simple. It's breathing practice with awareness, right? So we are breathing, on average 20,000 breaths in a 24-hour cycle a day. And how many of those inhales and exhales are we actually paying attention to? And so that's really what breathwork is. It's bringing our awareness and our consciousness to our breath, to our breathing patterns, to where we feel the breath moving in our body, to and then we go deeper how that breath is affecting us in our everyday life. And I came to breath work the way a lot of folks do, through meditation and yoga. And I found, especially in those early days of meditating, that I just couldn't focus. I think a lot of us experience that. My mind was just racing. My emotions were really intense. When I would sit down, I would have just like so many intense sensations in my body that I couldn't sit still. And it was quite excruciating to try to like force myself to sit still. And so I had a teacher very early on who was like, just count your breath, just count your breath. And she was like, just count 1, 2, 3, 4 on the inhale, and count 1, 2, 3, 4 on the exhale. She's like, just do that. And she would have me set a timer. And this was before like smartphones or any of that. So I had this little like kitchen egg timer, and I would set a timer for just like 3 minutes, and I would just sit there, and that's all I would do. And it's not like all of a sudden I was this amazing breathwork expert. It's taken a lot of years, but that was the first entry point for me, where I was like, I did that for 3 minutes, and afterwards I felt something different. And I wasn't 100% calm or zen, but there was a subtle shift. And the shift was enough for me to like want more. I was like, how can I get more of that? This is the first time I've ever like felt, and I hear people say this a lot in yoga. They're like, I did this whole practice, but it was at the end, it was in Shavasana when I kind of felt like my soul drop into my body and I felt everything in alignment. And then I got up off my mat and was like, something is different. This is interesting. I'm going to come back tomorrow and try this again. So that was my real kind of first entryway to breath work. And, like I said, I came through meditation and yoga, but I came to meditation and yoga because I was really struggling in a lot of different areas of my life.
Yeah, I feel like people find meditation and yoga. I feel like yoga maybe is the gateway, and then they find meditation, and then they find breath work. But
Yeah.
it's one of those workouts that definitely does put you in your body. And it resonates with me that you say it happens in Shavasana, because it's almost, and I might have said this before in another podcast, but Chris and I always talk about that he's a golden retriever and he needs to run to be able to lay down and be relaxed. And there is something about like using the energy that's in your body and allowing for that flow to sort of happen, to then feel like you're in your body and relaxed. How does breath work provide that to someone if they're just, it's skipping the yoga, it's going straight to the breath work, it's Shavasana? Can you talk to me about what's going on in the body and what someone might be experiencing?
Yeah. So, and I'll just say this too, there's a lot of different forms of breath work. There's like, more intense breath work practices like a Wim Hof, where you're like getting in an ice bath and you're like really revving up your heart rate and doing different things. And, it's beautiful. There's so many different types of practices. Most of the practices that I teach are kind of to downshift and to regulate nervous system into more of a parasympathetic state. And I found for myself personally, that's what I've needed. Like I'm already on high, like I don't need to go any higher. That's just kind of my personality and my constitution. And most of the clients I work with are already more in kind of an anxiety, overwhelmed, stress picture. And they're like, I just want to like downshift. How do I do that? And so one of the main things that I focus on with people in the beginning is what I call the power of the exhale. And it's and it's going to sound like too simple. You're going to be like, wait, is this actually going to work? But I promise it's going to work if you do it consistently. So you'll inhale for 2 counts, and then you'll exhale for 4 counts. And so what this does, as you start to lengthen your exhale and make it twice as long as your inhale, it starts to kick on your parasympathetic nervous system. So it's going to slow your heart rate. It's going to stimulate your vagal nerve. It's going to just slow everything down. And in the beginning, it can feel weird. It can feel really weird to start to slow our systems down, especially if we're used to, multitasking all the time and kind of running, like towing that line of almost being in burnout, but not quite. You know what I mean? Like just going so fast, doing so many different things. It can feel really uncomfortable to slow down. But the key is just to stick with it and to do it in really small increments. I used to suggest, and this was like, 7, 8 years ago when I first started, I would have my clients be doing like 10 minutes of breath work a day to start. And now I'm like, try 3. Let's just like really simplify this. What can we do to get you to practice this extended exhale every day? And most of my clients now are like 10 minutes, like that just is overwhelming already. I have anxiety, my heart rate's going up, like I'm sweating, like I don't want to do this. And I'm like, 3 minutes. And then people are all of a sudden like, okay, 3 minutes, I can do that. It's kind of like the Fab Four. It's like, let's make it simple. Let's make it accessible. Let's make it repeatable, right? It's like, that's what we need. Something that we can repeat over and over and over and build that habit in and start to learn what it feels like. Oh, I did my 3 minutes. There's a shift. And of course, you can always add on, which you will do. Like as you continue to practice, you'll add a few minutes here and there, but just to start to reestablish that baseline in your nervous system so that this is what calm feels like. And I didn't know that for many years.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like so many of us are multitasking. I can just think about the half hour before taping this podcast with you. It's like I'm feeding a baby, I'm sending an email, I'm signing a DocuSign, I come to sit down, I'm texting you that I'm going to be late. Then all of a sudden I'm sitting at my desk and we start, and little Sebastian's in the background of the video, like full passy in his mouth. Hi, Ashley. You're like, oh my God. Even just telling me to exhale for twice as long just now calmed my body down. Can we talk about if someone wants to drop in and calm themselves versus like what would be a revving breath work? Like what are the different types of breath work? Because you kind of touched on Wim Hof, but can you explain the different types and what you might experience when you're done?
Sure. So if you're looking to feel less overwhelmed, if you're looking to reduce anxiety, if you're looking to kind of cultivate a different relationship with your stress, I'm not going to say, stress is bad, because we all know that it's our relationship to it, but those types of things. Or if, let's say, here's some real life examples. Let's say your kid is having a meltdown, right? Like I just went through this morning. It's like, what breathwork tool do I need in that moment, right? For me, I need the extended exhale. I need to feel my feet on the ground. I need to take a long inhale through my nose. I need to extend that exhale out of my mouth as long as I can. And then I need to remember he's 2.5. He's having a hard time. Like, this is what's going on. Now I can show up and become a better parent, right? So that's a really accessible kind of tool that we can use anywhere. If you're feeling tired, right? And this can happen, especially as a parent or somebody who's super busy. You wake up, you're feeling tired. You want a breathing practice that's going to not necessarily bring you right back into a deeper parasympathetic state. You want to feel awake. You want to feel energized. You want to maybe get a tiny bit of like cortisol spike. So you're going to do a breathing practice. It's going to be faster and it's going to happen through your mouth. So it's going to be like a inhaling and exhaling out of your mouth type of a practice. And that's going to stimulate your sympathetic nervous system, which is going to give you some energy, wake you up, get you going. So we call that in my early days of yoga, like a yogic coffee type of a breath, right?
Yeah.
So there's different breathing practices for, different kind of real life situations. And a lot of the situations that you're going to find yourself in, like either needing energy or needing to kind of regulate yourself, those are the two pictures that we're going to look at.
Do you ever pair the two?
You can, yeah. So, and this is with a lot of the breath work that we did together in the beginning, it's going to be a more active breath in the beginning. And then at the end, we're going to do a more restorative breath. And so that's a sequence that I would take a client through, especially if I'm wanting them to like purge, right? So do some emotional purging, some psychological purging, kind of getting the nervous system going, getting it revved up, stimulating the limbic system so that you can start to release some emotions, release some energy, have a clearing. And then I'll take you into it. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose, extended exhale to then kind of integrate, rest, and restore the system. So yeah, you can totally pair the two.
You like how I asked that question? I want to
Yes.
talk about my experience working
Yes.
with you, Ashley. I mean, I have to say that for me personally, and maybe this is resonating with other people because it's something that happened for you, was meditation was hard for me to access. Like I wanted to move my body. I wanted to just be good at it. I wanted to have something like direction. It was like I needed the direction that you received, which is like breathing, right? And so when I first went to see Ashley, I was writing my first book. I was really overwhelmed with the power of like what I could create, but also just this life of working 2 jobs and trying to move my body and take care of myself and write a book. And it was just starting to feel like I had a lot of balls in the air. So I think Ashley could tell. She was like, hey, why don't we have a session? Why don't we have a breathwork session? And that's exactly what happened. I went to her studio. I laid down on the table. I did some really active breath. And what ended up happening was I felt tingling all over my body. I felt warm, and then I started bawling. And I'm not someone who, I mean, since becoming a mom, I definitely cry a lot easier, but I'm not someone who cries at the drop of a hat. I don't normally feel overwhelmed by work or, but I was leveling up at that point, and I had a lot on my plate and I had a lot of things that I needed to work through. I felt like maybe the responsibility of writing a book and putting something out there in the wellness space, it was really important to me that it was accessible to people, that it was something that someone would walk away loving their body a little bit more and connecting with themselves a little bit more. It felt like heavy. And so what I think you gave me in that moment, I don't know if you remember this, but I was bawling, and then we slowed it down, and I had to catch my breath and slow it down. And at the end of that session, do you remember what you asked me? You asked me what was coming up for me, and you always just hold space. You never put words in people's mouths. And I remember it like a vivid dream, honestly. And I said, I need to tell the people that I love them more. Mm-hmm. I need to show up for them more. And I need people who read this book to walk away loving themselves more. And it totally changed the book, my first book, Body Love, was going to be so science packed and like, do this and do that. And I was like, it doesn't matter. People need to like, it's your 3 minutes of breath work. People need to show up for themselves in an accessible, lifestyle, buildable, tangible way. And it's too hard when it's overwhelming, when there are so many things to do.
Yes.
It was life-changing for me, and it was career changing. And it was, I mean, it's been something that I've used for a long time, and I need to get more in the habit of doing it daily, but man, can it be a changer.
Yeah, it really can. And I just got chills when you were talking, because as you were talking about what came up for you, I was like, oh my God, I just was like transported back to my little studio in Silver Lake. I'm like, I remember that. Like, I remember that so well now. As soon as you said it, I was like, yep, it can. And it's like, it really gives you that moment, you know? And so often we are, especially like you said, when we're in a place where we're leveling up and we're like going through an initiation. That's what I call it. We're like going to the next phase, and there's a transition process, and we're creating a wider capacity for more, right? We're just making more space within our bodies, within, you know, our psyches, within our hearts. And there's stuff that we have to clear there and get clear on. You know, it's like some stuff has to move so that clarity can come through, and it came through so just so quickly for you in that moment. And it's just, I'm finding so often that it's like that pause, and it's nice to have a longer session. That's always amazing, and like always something that I encourage. And then to have those little kind of mini sessions in between, just as more like maintenance, and just to have that practice of, I'm just going to give myself 3 minutes. Like, I'm not going to check my phone. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to multitask. I'm just going to focus on my heart beating, on my breath, and on the sensations in my body. And that in and of itself is it's such a reframe just right away. It's like hitting the reset button and going, okay, what's next? You know? And so often we just keep in the pattern of just doing, and not just hitting pause just for a moment, you know, just for a moment to kind of let everything settle.
If someone's just getting started and they want to let everything settle, is there a time in the day when we should be doing this? Is there a, an environment we should create to do it? Like, how should someone get started?
My suggestion is to get started in the way that is the easiest for you, right? So take a tiny little inventory of your life, look at your day to day and go, okay. And especially if you're like, I don't know where I'm going to fit this in, right? But just ask yourself some simple questions like, would it be easier for me to potentially do this in the morning or in the evening once the kids are in bed? Like, what's going to make this kind of the least barrier to entry? Like, I think oftentimes especially when we're getting into a new wellness practice, we want to like do all the things and like have it be perfect and like go big, you know, and like, okay, I'm going to do 20 minutes every day and it's going to be awesome. And it's 6 a.m. And it's like, well, what does your life look like? Like, what does your life typically look like at 6 a.m.? Is that a reasonable thing for you? For me, it's not. Like, Solomon's up, it's like breakfast is happening, you know, it's like, that's not a good time for me to get into a practice. I do much better when he's in his nap, you know, in the middle of the day or after he's gone to bed, you know, or when Nick is, my partner has taken over and then I have a few minutes to do something like that. So make it easy. So pick a time of day that is easy for you. Pick a length of time that is easy for you. 3 to 5 minutes to start. Like, just let's make it so easy. I had a meditation teacher years ago. He was like, put your cushion in your room and just commit to taking 1 breath a day. And at the time I was like, oh, this is so ridiculous. Like, 1 breath a day, come on. And I was like, oh my God, the guy's actually onto something. 1 breath a day, just like put that cushion where you can see it, you know, put your yoga mat where you can see it. It might not be the most beautiful thing. It might not like go with their like whole Instagram vibe in your room, but like, where are you going to actually do the thing, you know? So I just leave it out where I can see it. It's not pretty. It's not cute. It's not something I'm going to post on Instagram, but it's like, it's right there. So when I'm like, I don't know, I don't have time. It's like, there's one less thing for me to do. It's like my mat is already out, you know? So just set up your space so that it's easy, and pick a time of day that is easy, knowing that you can always change it later if it's not working, you know?
So interesting, because with the people that I've interviewed for this podcast, experts in so many different things, that comes up, like creating the space for it, having a physical trigger and reminder for it, starting slow, making it accessible. It doesn't have to be this woo-woo big thing. It can be just literally sit on the cushion and do it.
Yeah, just literally sit on a cushion, sit on your mat and just breathe. set a timer if you want to, so you're not like, that was really helpful for me in the beginning. I needed to know like that was on. Now I don't have to think about like, am I going to know when 3 minutes is up? And like, then I'm just focusing on the 3 minutes, So it's like, I can just sit there and you're going to probably focus on it in the beginning anyway, like I did. I'm like, is it 3 minutes up? Should I check the timer? Like, what's going on? Is it not working? I'm not sure. This feels like it's been a really long time. I don't know. So, there's a lot of stuff that will come up, but I love what you're saying. Yeah. It's like create that environment and make it a habit, right? It's like, how do we make a habit? How do we cultivate a habit? We have to do it. It has to be repeatable. It has to be easy. It has to be consistent, and if you miss a day, great. Try again the next day. Try not to miss like 5 days in a row if you can, because it's just going to make it harder, but try to be as consistent as possible.
I love it. Well, now that we have a tool for people to get started, simple, easy. I love that. That resonates with me the most. And I'm definitely going to move my meditation pillow to my bedroom because it's going to happen for me after Bashi and Tosh go to bed, because it just, yeah, my mornings are like most mom mornings. It's like, I have a minute to drink coffee and like write a few things down, but it's the chaos of young energy just swirling around me. And so, yeah, that totally makes sense to me. When it comes to people who have the time to create more of an intense practice, can you talk to me about what, obviously we have Wim Hof, we have box breathing. I think it's called holotropic breathing, tropic breathing. I'd love for you to explain kind of like in depth what the nuances are of each of those.
They're each going to give, ultimately kind of breath work is like, a huge blanket for any practice that's done with consciousness, right? Any breathing practice is done with consciousness. And each one is going to give you a little bit of a different effect. It's also going to have a different style of teaching. It's going to have a different community associated with it. So you're going to meet different kinds of people in each community, some that you may resonate with more, some less, I know a lot of folks in different, more of the kind of active breathing styles are much more kind of athletic driven, like peak performance type people, so there's like that kind of a vibe, it's really cool. It's just like yoga. It's like you can do Iyengar yoga. It's like a little bit more slow. There's a lot of props, there's chairs, or you can do like power vinyasa and it's like loud rock and roll music. You know what I mean? It's like, there's a little bit of a flavor. Like the holotropic breathwork is, they practice in these like 4-hour sessions. There's lots of music. There's lots of like screaming and kicking and, these like big kind of psychedelic experiences. And, you have somebody kind of sitting with you, coaching with you the whole time. And so some people like that, like as a big kind of just emotional reset. And that can be really, really helpful. I think the challenge can be like, how do I then, like, well, how do I integrate that? It's like, how do I have this big, 4-hour emotional experience? And then what do I do next? And how do I integrate that? And also, I'll just, as a little side note, if any of you listening have experienced a lot of trauma, whether that be physical trauma, relational trauma, sexual trauma, developmental trauma, a lot of those breathing practices can be really, can really activate a lot of stuff in your body and in your memory. And so I encourage you to do, if you're going to go in that direction, to definitely seek the support of a, therapist that you're working with, to have a lot of support around that, because it can unlock a lot of stuff and be, re-triggering for a lot of people. So definitely just get support if you're in that camp. And there's a lot of, fantastic people who can support you. But those are essentially, the differences. There's also yin yoga. They do a lot of breathing in yin yoga, and kind of yoga nidra that is more kind of parasympathetic based. It's more kind of getting you into a restful state. So yoga nidra is considered like the yoga of sleep. So it's really about resting and kind of letting your body restore and bringing your energy down.
I love it. There are so many ways to access this. And it's,
Yes.
we're all, as Ashley stated, we're all breathing all day long, and just bringing some awareness to it is important. When it comes to everyday breathing, and you obviously probably think about your breath more than 99.9% of us, but are there any like tips or tricks that we, like a regular person, should have, like if they're driving, sitting at their desk, walking around? Are there best practices for where we should be bringing our breath and like how we should be breathing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the first thing I'll say is to try to pay attention to the lower part of your torso. So where your diaphragm is, and our diaphragm, most of us I didn't know where my diaphragm was when I started yoga. And it was like quite a few years before I had a teacher actually talked about where it is, but it sits up under your rib cage. And it's this really kind of thin muscle. It's a really strong muscle. It's hard to access from the front of the body, but it's all up under your rib cage. And it's a double dome kind of a shape, right? And so this is our primary breathing muscle, the diaphragm. And it should be working at about 70% when we're breathing, which is what we want. A lot of us, when we have a lot of stress and tension in the body and we're in more of a kind of chronic sympathetic breathing pattern, the diaphragm is going to be tight. It's going to be working less. And we're going to be using more of our upper chest muscles to do the breathing, which is actually, those are considered the secondary breathing muscles. And so often I'll find, with clients who have more of a stress and anxiety pattern, their breath is really shallow. They're going to be super tight in the shoulders. They're going to be having a lot of knots, a lot of chronic tension, a lot of issues with the neck, those types of things. And they're like, they'll say things to me like, I keep getting massages and like nothing is working. It's like, yeah, we got to shift your breathing pattern, get you a little bit more down regulated, and also get your diaphragm online and doing its job. Right. So a nice way that you can access your diaphragm, and this is something I like to do, is just place your hand right at the base of your sternum. So right at kind of the bottom of your ribs there, like high abdomen. You just leave it there. And then inhale and exhale through your nose. And then just notice what happens to your hand. Just see if you can sense any movement with your hand. So inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the nose, and just see what you notice. What we're looking for here, and I don't want to get into like right or wrong. I don't want anyone to feel like shame or like horrible if, they're not getting the kind of optimal or most efficient way to breathe. And this definitely was the case for me in the beginning. But what you want to be feeling on the inhale is a slight expansion of your upper abdomen. You can feel that expansion into your hand. And what you want to feel on the exhale is just a softening and a returning to neutral. So inhale, see if you can feel an expansion in your hand. And then exhale, see if you notice a return to neutral. So if you're sensing that, what's happening on the inhale, the diaphragm actually drops down, the abdomen comes forward, the lungs fill with air, the rib cage moves out, the lungs fill with air, right? And so this is kind of what we would call an efficient way to breathe, right? This is how our bodies are designed to breathe. What some folks might feel as you do this, as you inhale, you might feel your abdomen pulling in. Right? And so all that means is you're going in the opposite direction. And so if you're going in the opposite direction, what I would encourage you to do is practice this and start to focus your attention on your hand. And as you inhale, I want you to see if you can begin to draw and press. Shall we use the word press? So kind of press your abdomen forward. And on the exhale, let everything soften. Inhale, press your abdomen forward into your hand. And exhale, let everything soften. And what this is going to do is going to retrain your respiratory system how to breathe in the most efficient way possible. And again, the reason that's most efficient, the diaphragm drops down, the rib cage opens, and then the lungs can fill from the bottom to the top with oxygen. That's what we want, right? We want them to fill all the way up. When the diaphragm isn't distending and it's just kind of staying stuck, then we're only filling our lungs at like half capacity. And what this does, it keeps us in more of a stress response, because interestingly, there are parasympathetic nerve receptors at the bottom of our lungs. So if the oxygen isn't getting all the way down to the bottom of the lungs, we are not going to be able to click on parasympathetic nervous system. It's just not going to happen. And so we want to be able to open that up. You can even take your hands, and you can all do this. If you're driving, you can do this when you get home. But have your hands on the sides of your rib cage, and have elbows pointing out to the side. And then see if you can feel that same thing. So inhale, see if you can feel your rib cage expand. Right? Your diaphragm's dropping down, your rib cage is expanding. And then on the exhale, there's just a return to neutral. Inhale, expand. Exhale, return to neutral. So these are some of the kind of nuts and bolts and foundational pieces that you can begin to start to work with, and just to get that somatic sense, or that body sense of like, how is my body even breathing? Like, how is this thing working? Which is really important.
Wow. How does like working out and moving our body support that type of breathing? Because I do feel like maybe I had better breath work before having children. Like sometimes, or maybe it's just my kids and like the overwhelming nature of like doing it all, where I'm like, I'm definitely breathing a lot more in the top half of my lungs since having children than getting that oxygen down to the bottom of my lungs. How does working out support that, or is breathwork its own practice for creating
Yeah, breathwork can be its own practice to support that. Also, we have to think about just what our life looks like day to day. I know for me, I know I'm still nursing Solomon, not a lot, but once or twice a day. And so there's just more stress and tension in my upper body, my shoulder. Like I have to work to open my chest, keep my shoulders back. Like I got the mom like shoulder roll forward. Like I just like it's like
Yeah,
that kind of like perpetual nursing position,
you're like cuddled over them.
right. And that's also, even when I'm not nursing, it's like, I'm so much taller than my son. Of course, I'm like in that kind of constant parent, like bending over and really having to watch and pay attention to my body mechanics and do simple things like bend my knees into a squat if I'm going to pick them up. But it's like stuff that's also hard to remember when you're really tired. And I can't tell you how many times I've like tweaked my back this last year, just being like, oh, I'll just grab him. And then I'm like, oh, that was like a really weird position. What am I doing? And also from, nursing so much too, I've noticed that it's like the sides, so my rib cage and even like, excuse me, my abdominal muscles have gotten a lot tighter. And so I do really simple things. Like I'll take one arm overhead and I'll do a lot of side stretches just to open up. Yeah. Just open up the sides of my body, open up the side of the rib cage. Just do a few of those simply before I start breathing. Just even that, it kind of triggers that muscle memory. Okay, right. We're going to open. And it's our bodies just need to remember. It's like we forget if it's not the main thing that we're doing, if it's not something that we're practicing, that memory just kind of gets all the way into the background. It's like, no, wake everything up. Let's like reconnect those circuitry in the brain. Like this is how we're going to move. So it's definitely breakfast. Hello.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
I
I'm
know,
just
me
kidding.
too. Breathwork is a standalone practice, and the activities that you're doing throughout the day, so how you're moving, what exercise you're doing, can definitely support it. So just think about that too as you're moving in whatever exercise you're doing, whether that's like more kind of strength training, whether that's more cardio for the day, whether that's more of a yoga or Pilates practice, whatever it is. Just make sure that you're getting some kind of stretching around your upper torso, doing those side bends, maybe doing some twists to make sure that you're really keeping your chest open, because that's going to make your breathing practice much more efficient.
I love it. Well, I would love for people to get a taste of breathwork today.
Yeah.
And I haven't decided yet. I may put this at the beginning so people just drop in and then learn about it. But maybe we'll keep it here. We'll decide. We'll decide after we go through it. But maybe 10 minutes of breath work for people who've never tried it, so they can get into their body and get a taste of Miss Ashley Neese.
That sounds great. And so is there anything that you want to focus on in particular, or you just want me to just roll and just
I want you to do your thing, Ash.
okay. All right. This sounds good. All right. So I'm going to have you all take a comfortable seat. So I'm sitting in a chair right now. So if you're sitting in a chair, I want you to have your feet on the floor, hip distance apart. And I want you to have your hands in your lap, just kind of resting, either palms facing up or down. And then just take a moment here without even focusing on your breath or doing anything like that. We're just aligning the body. Lengthen your spine. Draw the crown of your head up towards the sky. Slightly tuck the chin. Good. Eyes can be open or closed. If you want to have your eyes open, I suggest just a soft gaze down at the floor in front of you. And this just helps you kind of bring your attention inward. Good. And then from here, we'll begin very simply inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your nose. You don't need to count your breath or lengthen your inhale or exhale right now. Just gently and slowly inhale through your nose and exhale through your nose. And from here, check back in with your body. So I want you to see if you're in a comfortable position, If anything's feeling off or not quite right, I want you to take a moment to adjust your seated position. Good. And then bring your awareness back to your breath. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your nose. We'll begin with a very simple body scan. So I like doing a body scan in the beginning because it helps to just continue to ground the energy and set up your nervous system for practice. So starting with your head, then we'll work our way down to the feet. Take a moment to notice any sensations in your head. And you don't need to change the sensations that you're experiencing or judge them. Just notice. Notice places in your head that feel warm, feel cold. Bring your awareness to any places in your head that feel tight, that feel open. Perhaps where you feel pressure. Like for example, right now I'm noticing on like the right side of my face, I'm feeling some pressure around my eye. I'm just noticing it. We don't have to even make meaning out of it, which is what I love about breath work. You're just paying attention to our bodies. Continuing as we do the body scan, inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your nose, and then bringing your awareness down to your shoulders and arms. Just scanning the full length of your shoulders, all and arms, all the way down to your fingertips. Noticing any sensations that are present. Sometimes in a body scan, you might feel an impulse to move. So sometimes when I'm scanning my shoulders, I want to just inhale and draw them up to my ears. And then as I exhale, I just draw the shoulder blades down on my back and open the chest a little. So as you go through the body scan, if you have an impulse to move, I invite you to move with your breath. Good. And then from here, bringing your awareness to your upper body. So we'll do the front of the body, front of the torso first, and then the back. So chest area, abdomen, the whole front of the body. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your nose, just noticing the sensations that are present in the front of your body right now. As you notice sensations, you can think of temperature, you can think of the quality of the sensation, or more generally, just places that feel comfortable, places that feel uncomfortable. And body scans are also a really wonderful place to notice kind of habitual holding patterns, right? Or chronic tension, things like that. When I first started breathwork, I noticed I was kind of constantly, sucking in my belly from so many years of ballet when I was young, but also just trying to fit into really tight jeans and trying to be part of the culture that tells us we have to draw our bellies in. But so just notice if there's anywhere that you're kind of holding, gripping, and you don't even need to let it go right now or change it. Just notice it. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your nose. And then bringing your awareness to your back, scanning the full length of your back. Noticing places that feel open, that feel settled. And perhaps noticing any places that feel congested, tight, uncomfortable. Good, and keeping that steady inhale, steady exhale. So as we're going through the body scan, the breath is our anchor. If in a moment we get lost or we find ourselves really kind of going into an ache or pain or place in our body, just return to the breath. Return to that gentle, slow rhythm. Good. And then from here, bringing your awareness down to your legs. And then scanning the full length of your legs. Down to your feet. And just notice anything in your legs. In the beginning of my practice, I used to notice a lot. And I remember the first time I noticed this, that my thighs were just kind of always turned on. Like I was always ready for something, you know? So just this simple breath practice with a body scan can bring a lot of insight, right, into those chronic holding patterns, into the places where we might want to explore later with more breath work, with more awareness. In some places that might need our attention or some extra care, some extra tenderness. Good. And then take another moment here when you're ready. Just let the body scan go and bring your awareness fully to your breath. And I want you just to notice the quality of your breath. Notice the quality of your inhale as you fill up your lungs. Notice the quality of your exhale as you let go and release. Just take a moment to see if anything feels different with your breath. And then for this last minute, we're going to focus on creating an extended exhalation. So what I want you to do is continue to inhale and exhale through your nose, but you're going to make your exhale just slightly longer than your inhale. Just real simple. Inhale through your nose and then start to gently extend your exhalation. Just giving yourself the time right now to practice and to see what that feels like. Inhaling through your nose, lengthening your exhale out of your nose. And we'll just go for another 30 seconds here. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your nose. Good. Take 3 more rounds just like that, with that extended exhale. And then at the bottom of your last exhale, just take a moment to notice how your body feels. Notice any changes, whether that be changes in your thinking, changes in sensations in your body, changes in your breath. And then if your eyes are closed, take a moment and gently open your eyes and just kind of orient yourself to your space. something one of my yoga teachers used to say early on when we would get out of Shavasana, and this is something that I take with me into my breathwork practice. He gets full credit for it. Tony G, he's a teacher in LA. He's just one of the most heart-centered humans I've ever known. But he would talk about this when we would get out of Shavasana, like, just see if as you're transitioning from Shavasana out into the world, if you can just hold some of this with you, right? It's not about being in this super slow state all the time, of course not, but just what can you take with you from our practice that we just did, from the body scan, from the slow breathing? What can you take with you as you transition? What can you hold? Hi.
Juicy.
I feel
Oh,
good.
I feel good too. I want people to have that. I'm gonna definitely put that at the beginning, and it's gonna be obvious that I didn't bring it with me into our questioning, but
It's fine.
I think it's the perfect way to start. And I want to give people the juicy that you offer, and that that they can tap into and take with them.
Yeah.
What a beautiful practice. It's it it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be silencing the noise, but definitely like doing some activity that breathing really just brings me back into my body every time.
Yeah, every time. Same with me. And I love that you said early on, it's like, because I had the same experience. Like, I tried so many different kinds of meditation, and like, I could never just sit still. Like, I could never just focus. And then as soon as I had that cue of like, oh, just bring your awareness to your breath and bring your awareness to your body, that was like, oh, okay, my mind has something to do now. Then my system could settle even more. It's like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to feel like. Got it. I'm not trying to like force myself to not think or try to force myself to, you know what I mean? Just like be still. It's like really hard.
Yeah,
So
it definitely is. Oh, well, what can people do if they want to access a breathwork teacher or your online courses, or they want to do a workshop? Like, where should they look first, and what do you offer?
So I've got my book. That's usually a great place to start. It's called How to Breathe. It's got 25 different practices in it, ranging from practices that are super simple to practices that are much more advanced. And the beautiful thing about the book is that it's organized by kind of emotion. So you don't have to like really know anything about breathwork to start. You can just look at the table of contents and it'll say like anger, grief, intimacy, all these different things. So you can pick your practice based on that. And I wanted to kind of create the book as a little bit of an oracle, so you could just not even have to know anything. You're welcome, of course, to read the first 2 chapters and dive into all the science and kind of best practices and those tips. Or if you want to just dive in, you can kind of go from your emotional center and pick what feels like it's going to resonate for you. And then this year I launched, after a lot of people asking for so many years, like, can we just like have you in our ear? Like, how can we get an audio recording? I just need to listen to your voice and do my practice. So finally that's happening now. And every month I release a series of practices that you can access through my website. And similarly to the book, they're organized by theme. So January's theme was intention. February's theme was anxiety. This month we're focusing on cleansing, which we're really working with the lymphatic system and how to help clear the lymphatic system with breath work. So there's, it's thematic, and then you get an audio recording, you get journal prompts, you get a lot of tips and tricks on like how to make things more accessible. And then every quarter I'm doing a live class. So next month I'm going to be doing a live class that will be recorded that people can access anytime. So that's been my like big community offering this year, as I'm also writing my second book right now. So which is awesome. I'm so excited. It's been in the works for like the last, basically since How to Breathe was finished. I was already like, okay, what's book 2 going to be about? And it's taken a baby and, moving and building a house and all these things to actually get it going. But it won't be out for quite a while. It'll be out in fall of 2022. But as I'm working on the book, I'm offering these, monthly kind of gatherings and practices. Other things that I suggest, if you're looking for a teacher and looking for something super specific, like you can just literally Google, like there's so much stuff on breathwork right now. And breathwork, it's like when my book came out in 2019, it was just kind of starting to like get big and starting to get popular. And I think the pandemic, it's like breathwork just went through the roof, and there's so many new books out now. And there's so much stuff that you can get access to online, which is really awesome. Like, one of my main goals with the book was like, I want to get this out there. Like, I want breathwork to be accessible. I want people like my mom to go into Target and find a breathwork book. Like, yes, you know what I mean? I was like, and it was so excited. I was so happy when Target picked up my book, but it was like, I just want to get these practices out there. It doesn't need to be like only for this little tiny group of wellness people in LA. Like, anybody can do this stuff. And I knew I was onto something when my mom and dad were like, we really like your book and we're like able to do this stuff. I was like, yep, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. Like, let's make it doable, So yeah.
Absolutely. It's wellness woo-woo, but totally accessible.
Yes.
Because everyone's just walking around breathing all day long.
All day long, and it's funny, like when I remember when I first decided to like really niche out my business and just go like straight into breath, like before I was like everybody else. Like, I was a health coach, I was a yoga teacher, I was a meditation teacher, I was a writer. And then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like do breath because that's what I'm the most interested in. People would literally cross their arms like and be like, you do what? Like, I'm already breathing. Like, why do I need you? You know what I mean? Why do I need breath work? And I was like, yeah, but do you notice that you're breathing? And they'd be like, what do you mean? And then all of a sudden everyone's like, how am I breathing? Like, you're looking at my body now. And so it's like, yeah, you could also benefit from just bringing some more mindfulness into your practice. And here's all the benefits of it. And so it's cool to see now. It's like when I say that, people are like, oh yeah, totally. Like, I heard that on a podcast, or, oh, I saw that in a New York Times article. And I'm like, yes, finally.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
You were definitely the early adopter and like one of the I want to say like foremothers, like a forefather breath work. And I'm so lucky that that we became friends and that I had access to that. And I definitely want everyone listening to know what it is, to be able to use it, to be able to find you. What an easy and fun thing to do to join even like a quarterly live or call, or to like really dive deep and decide that like this is the wellness practice for them. What I really want people to focus on is adding and nourishing themselves. Like, we aren't in a place of deprivation, we aren't in a place of restriction, we are in a place of like, hey, I'm going to try this, and if it really resonates with me and becomes something that I love, it's like, I'm so thankful to my friend Carrie in college for introducing me to yoga. And she was a ballerina and a dancer, and and she wanted that flow, and we found it. And I am like forever indebted to her for that, because as a SoCal soccer girl, I think I probably would have been doing like Orange Theory Fitness and Barry's boot camp for the rest of my life. And now it's like, there's so much, I have so much femininity and like just length and strength and like processing. There's so much processing that happened on my mat through breakups and job changes, and just like the day-to-day stress of being in your early 20s before I met Chris. Like, what will my life look like? Like, we put all these arbitrary, you have this arbitrary checklist of like, what are the Joneses doing? And like, what am I supposed to be doing? And like, there's anxiety with not meeting your milestones, or like, and I think about yoga as like something that helped me to do that. And you really like starting my own business and literally leveling up and being able to find stillness. It happened for me with breathwork. Yoga was my gateway, and breathwork is the tool that I choose to use. And I think it can be really powerful for people. So if anyone's listening and they had a hard time focusing with meditation, or you just want something that's accessible and easy and you want to give it a try, I definitely recommend those 3 minutes. Put your mat or pillow out, go follow along with Ashley. If you're really interested and you get a taste and you're like, wow, this may be just for me, like, head to her website, check out her workshops. And I love the monthly themes. I'm going to join in.
Oh my God. Yeah, I can't wait for you to join in. It's been so much fun. And it's been great these last couple of months to do the recording and get all the feedback. And I'm excited to have the quarterly like live and actually like really pop on and connect to folks. And they're like, can you do a Q&A too? So we're gonna be doing some Q&A stuff, and just really helping each other out. I mean, like, for folks who have questions, and once you've been in for a little while and you've been practicing a little bit, like, trust me, a lot of questions will come up. And so I want to be accessible and able to answer those questions, and also just create more community, around this work that we're all doing, which is like, how do we stay present? How do we access presence? How do we feel ourselves? How do we reduce stress? All that good stuff. Just how do we become more human, right? And become better humans. So yeah.
It's so good, Ash. Well, where can people follow along? Where can they find you and access your monthly class?
So the best place to find me these days is on my website. It's just ashleyneese.com. You can access the class there. There's a short little intro video. There's tons of testimonials. There's lots of info for those of you who are curious, like what to expect. How do I do this? Is this going to be hard? All the things. And then if you decide you want to join the class, once you get in, there's like a very extensive welcome and FAQ. It's just, I go through every single thing. So it's very, very organized. And then I do usually 2 or 3 times a month, I send out a newsletter, and that's where I go super deep. I share a lot of, what I'm working on in my personal life. I share a lot of like what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, all that kind of good stuff. Those are really fun. And because I'm writing my second book, I'm not as active on Instagram as I normally am. It's just Ashley_Neese, but I've been pretty quiet over there and mostly focusing on my newsletter community and trying to have some psychic shielding to really go deep in my book. Cause it's a lot, as you've written so many, it's so hard to just get that focus time. And especially with little ones, it's like, okay, I've got 2 hours. I've got to jam on my book now. And so anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at with my, how I'm doing social media right now.
I love it. You're self-preservation mode. And I also think when you do put something up, it's amazing because you're worth the follow. When you do put something out into the world, it always feels like it comes with thought and depth, and it's substantial. So I still think you should follow Ashley. I'll put all of her contact in the show notes and her courses and all of that good stuff. So Ashley, just thank you so much for being here. I love you so much as a human, as a friend. You're the best mama bear. And I'm just really proud of you and happy for your success.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I love you to the moon and back. And I am just waiting for the day, hopefully this year, that we can all connect as a family and have some fun together with the boys.
I know, we're coming to hike in Yosemite.
Yes.